So Maja, welcome. You
Thank you.
play the saxophone.
Mhm.
What do you love the most about your instrument?
I love the most the versatility of this instrument, so the possibility that I can play different styles.
You play different styles. You play classical music, you play jazz, you play tango.
Exactly.
So this is a perfect instrument.
Absolutely, yes.
What don't you like at all about your instrument?
It's not exactly about the instrument, it's the role of the instrument. I don't like that it is not viewed as a equal instrument to the other orchestra instruments. I don't like this.
It is viewed
inferior.
inferior.
Yeah, because it doesn't have that long history. It's a very new instrument, and so it comes from the time when the photography was invented, around 1850, and so the very good and well-known composers couldn't write the music for the instrument, and also the very good players had to evolve with the time. So that's why I think because we don't have enough literature yet of very good composers, and because we don't have so many opportunities to play with the orchestra, it's still an instrument a little bit put aside, and I don't like this yet. I really want to change that.
So you have a mission?
Absolutely.
Which register do you prefer? Soprano, alto, tenor, baritone?
I prefer the more melodic instruments, the higher ones.
Soprano and alto.
Soprano and alto are my instruments, yes. Yeah.
Has it always been your instrument, the saxophone?
No.
You didn't play little children's saxophones?
Not at all. I had a very, very late start. My start was very late. I started playing the saxophone at the age of 19, and it was in Vienna, in a basement of a student home. I heard two fantastic players there. One was a classical and the other was a jazz man. So I had both things that impressed me very much, and then in 1 week I got an instrument, and 1 year later I got accepted at the Music University of Music and Fine Arts in Vienna.
So it was love at first sight, or at first ear, or how do you say it in English?
Kind of, because first I played the piano for 10 years, and then I moved to Vienna. I moved places because we lived in Slovenia and Switzerland, Slovenia, Switzerland, and I couldn't move so easily my instrument around, and I chose something that I can take with me that suits my dynamic personality, and where I'm forced to play with others too. So not just playing for myself, but also when you play a melodic instrument, you are forced to play with others, and I like this very much. And the love at first sight was actually when I heard the classical saxophone for the first time. This was at age of 19, and this impressed me very much because it was so different to the sound that I heard from rock or jazz or from the radio, all these impressions. It's a completely different, very controlled, a little bit intimate and warm sound, and you can combine it with so many other instruments, and I was very fascinated by that.
Maybe that's why I loved most when I heard you play long, soft, intimate sounds.
Maybe.
That's what you like? So this is the special quality of classical saxophone.
Yes, but I think with the time when there is more exchange between, especially between classical and jazz, where we have so many similar parameters, but the people they are making these big differences in their minds. But I want to bring this together because there are so many similarities. Because, yeah.
So what can you, as a classical saxophonist, saxophone player, learn from a jazz saxophone player? Just one important thing.
Play freely.
And what can you, as a jazz saxophone player, learn from a classical saxophone player?
Also just one word. Yes, dynamic playing, for example.
Dynamic playing means louder and
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
That's not so strong in jazz playing.
No.
Dynamic playing.
No, because not yet. Some people do it already, but normally you have to compete with other instruments. You have not possibilities to have a microphone at your gigs, or at least in the past. So to compete against drums or percussion, you just had to have your big sound, or against a whole big band. So that's why you really have to develop a loud, big sound. But yes, so the other quality is missing.
What music do you remember first hearing when you were very little?
I remember hearing my grandfather from my father's side playing the accordion, and not what might be very common in Slovenia to hear this Alp music from the Alps. So it was not a polka, it was not a waltz.
It was not popular music.
No, it was it were kind of it was a very melodic melody from the Balkans, from ancient Yugoslavia. At that time it was still Yugoslavia, but he sang and played his instrument, and it was a very melancholic melody, and everybody was just very quiet and listening to him.
You were lucky.
Yes, exactly.
So Maja, let's talk a little bit about the variety, the variability of your instrument. You talked about it at the beginning of our talk. You play classical music, and you play jazz, other styles too. Now, classical music and jazz are the two most important things for you. Let's start with a little piece of classical music. Maja.
Okay.
Who is the composer of this?
Yeah, so this is Jules Demersman from France.
Yeah. Jazz.
Yes.
Okay.
Jazz. Yes. So.
Thank you. This sounded like another instrument.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's another language.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
What is the main difference in the languages? Difficult to say.
Yeah, can't say.
that we could hear it, all
Okay.
of us, for sure. And maybe as a third example, world music, something in world
Yes.
music.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right now I'm checking out the flamenco solo by instrument. It's a wind instrument that I cannot identify. I tried on the saxophone. I'm trying to imitate the sound of this instrument. Yeah. So.
Third sound sounds a little bit Arabic, a little bit like duduk, something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
it might really be a duduk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
On your YouTube channel, there are different little excerpts, and in one film you play contemporary piece
Mm-hmm.
by a man named Christian Laube, which has a lot of new sounds and new techniques.
Yes.
Maybe you could show us 1, 2 or 3 of them.
Of course.
This
Yes.
is very interesting, I find.
Yes, so this was Christian Loba, and he wrote many etudes for the saxophone, which are considered real pieces, not just etudes to study, and they are really customized for the instrument. So he really explored the instrument, and yeah, so one technique is, for example, flatter tone.
You can do it differently. You can just do it without sound. You can use just the keys. So you can just use the keys. Then you can play multiphonics.
You can combine it, so it's not just, for example, multiphonics. At the beginning, they were just used as a for a Dracula effect, and then with the time there were composers like, for example, Giorgio Netti, who composed a 1 hour piece, a 60 minutes piece, just with multiphonics in dynamic range, piano to pianissimo. That's all. And after playing that, you are almost dead.
You have a current ensemble with a bandoneon player,
Exactly.
Marcelo Nisinman.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the combination of these two really strong instruments? Can you describe it a little bit? The sound, the blending of these two instruments.
Yes. So the very special thing for me is a very special sound. It's the breathing in of the bandoneon. It's like if the bandoneon played also, like if it were also a wind instrument. Yeah. So this is the very special thing, because both instruments, when they play together, they have to breathe together. And so this is the first thing. Of course, when you combine the different ranges, sizes of the saxophone, soprano or alto, I sometimes even play the tubax, which is the double bass saxophone, with bandoneon. There are really great combinations of of sounds. With soprano saxophone it blends perfectly, and with the very low ones. And depending on which piece, also the other ones. But we are exploring this because it's new. I don't know any other of these two combinations who are exploring this.
So I think it's really strong. It's not very soft. It's not flute and harp and things like that.
No.
It's really sounds which get through you, go inside you. Is that the impression you have too?
Absolutely, yes, it goes to the guts.
It goes to the guts, that's the expression, exactly. And it's also great because you can play classical music and you can play Piazzolla and you can play Miseman, so your two loves, jazz and classical music, come together in this combination.
Absolutely.
Maja, you seem to have many qualities. Which quality, all the same, would you like not to have? To change, maybe.
Yes. So sometimes I think about something very long time, and not just one day. It's 1 month, 1 year, or 5 years, just the same thing, and I would like to get it away.
Now, good quality. What is, you think, a really good quality as a human being?
Yes, it's actually the same thing. It's the same thing. It's like this obsession, So
Sticking to it.
Sticking, determination. I like this.
And your best quality as a musician, what do you think?
So I don't know if I reached it yet, but my utmost goal is to reach a very high flexibility and open-mindedness.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, LISLOT.